Yo, how's it going, guys? We're doing TCG back at again with another video, and today I'm here with the Santa Clara meta discussion. I got 4 guests here. I got Zach, Luke, Arlo, and Alex. So why don't we go in that order for the whole video? Yeah, you guys can feel free to introduce yourselves.
Okay, so I guess you said my name first, so I'll start. I'm Zach LESAGE. I play Pokemon for a living. I'm not going to Santa Clara, but I definitely have been grinding this format, and I will be going to Madison, Origins, and NAIC. So what up?
Hey guys, what's up? I'm Luke. I've been playing off and on for like 13 years or something. I went to Worlds last year. I run a YouTube channel called Celio's Network, and this format's pretty exciting.
Hey guys, my name's Arlo. I've been playing for about 3 years, 2 years competitively. And yeah, I haven't gone too deep into this format yet just because I'm not attending Santa Clara, but I will be attending Madison. We're still going to see what does well there in order to like kind of meta the session better.
What's up, guys? My name's Alec. I'm not going to Santa Clara either, but I am going to Madison, and I really like this format so far from what I've put in. So I hope to put in a lot of work, find out what's good and what's not.
All right. So to start off, a more unusual question than you might be used to hearing, but what do you think are the top 3 cards coming out of the new set that will affect the metagame?
Ooh, that's a doozy. Okay, so I'm gonna go with as much as I want to say Reshiram Charizard GX, I don't think that card would even be mentioned if we didn't have Welder. So I'm gonna say Welder is my #1 pick right now. Just the acceleration for Fire type Pokemon. It is crazy lit. The next card that I want to go over is Lieutenant Surge's Strategy. Even though that I don't feel it's going to be immediately played in this format right now, only besides maybe a few fringe stall decks, I feel like that card can really shape our future formats. Like playing 3 supporters per turn is kind of wild. And the last card that I'd want to go over is Dedenne GX. I think that Dedenne GX is kind of filling in a consistency crutch that we last saw when we had Shaman or Uxie. So having a card like that back in this format is really strong. So I think those are probably the 3 most format-defining cards.
All right.
All right, my #1's probably Mew Bench Barrier, since Pika Box was one of, if not the best deck of the last standard meta. Bench Barrier is definitely big in changing that up a bit. Pika Rum is still very good, but it loses that 170 snipe, which is huge if your opponent has the Mew down. I think Welder is definitely one of the 3, like Zach said. And my last one, I was going to say Dedenne. I think it'll be popular, but I'm not sure how meta-defining it'll be. I think possibly Green Search as my 3rd, since you can build decks around the Green Search Pokegear engine kind of thing, like the Quad GX decks, but we'll have to see if those end up actually being good.
I have to agree on everyone with Welder and Dedenne GX. I feel like those 2 cards are just very powerful. Like they draw cards, and of course the Fire type Pokemon's can kind of revived with the access to just attach, kind of like Blacksmith does back in the expanded format. And I also really like Pokegear. I think it just adds like a whole new level of consistency to the meta. Whereas it's kind of just like, I think it was in older formats. I didn't really play older formats, but I've seen like Heart Gold, Soul Silver, like back in the day, stuff like that. So it'd be nice to have that card back in the format.
I agree with what pretty much everyone else said already. I don't think there's anything really to add. I mean, like the cards that aren't like meta defining. I think as we get developed more into the meta, I think Power Plant is going to be better than what people think of it as now, because like lists aren't solidified yet, and Power Plant is a super solid card. But like you're not really like running it. If Zoroark does well, which we can talk about later. If Zoroark does well, it's like one of the main like I guess counters. It's just a good stadium to help like slow it down a little bit.
All right. So the first deck we're going to go over, which is probably the most hyped deck going into the event, is Reshizard. Do you think the hype is real, or do you think it's overhyped?
I think that Reshizard, I think it's probably real. So looking at the set, I think almost any player who's fairly competent can realize that Reshizard is just like the most big deck coming out of this set, where it's just like we have a 270 HP Pokemon. It swings for a lot of damage. It's really easy to power up. The issue that we'll see with that is, with it being the biggest deck expected for this weekend, or one of the biggest decks, is that we're going to see counters. So we have like Zoroark, Dugong, Zoroark, Slowking, Quagnag. People are even building Blastoise GX, Blastoise. And beyond that, if anyone's been playing on the PTCGO ladder lately, we'll notice that there's like Lost March decks. So people are like going back and looking at single prize card decks just to take down these tag team Pokemon. So I think while it's going to be a big deck, we also need to be very careful of the counters going forward.
I'm expecting a meta development, something like we saw in Toronto and expanded, where Pikarom got a lot of hype, and it was rightfully deserving of the hype. And there was, I think, about 60 or so Pikaroms, but then there were over 100 miscellaneous fighting type decks and Night March combined to counter the Pikarom, and then there were more decks to counter those counters. And I think we could see something like that. So I definitely think Reshizard is good, but if the meta develops in a way where people are prepared for Reshizard, it could look like it's not that great. Just like we saw Pikarom only take one spot in day 2 in Toronto, and then it was the last spot. It was like 40-something. I do think Reshizard has obvious potential, and Welder's an insane card. But because of its strength right off the bat, we're going to see counters for it.
Yeah, I have to agree that I think Reshizard is very like strong deck. It's kind of just like a better Pikarom, and so like you don't have like the type of versatility Pikarom had with its alternate lightning attackers as of right now. But I think the one problem is that we're going to see a lot of one prize decks like Granbull, Zapdos just continue to be very popular in the meta, and that will of course bring out Zoroark decks to also counter those one prize decks. So I feel like it's going to be a very weird meta. I'm excited for what people are going to bring though, because I do feel like one prize decks are going to kind of take over the format for Santa Clara at least.
Yeah, the hype's real. I mean, the deck is very, very strong. I was looking at the Fight Club results. I know it's not like the greatest players like per se, but it's not like the greatest testing results either. But there was a Reshizard that played against a Quagnag and it 2-0'd it. So I don't know if that was just dead drawing or whatnot. But like the counters losing to Reshizard, that's just like, in my eyes, like I think Reshizard is probably the best deck going in. But I think an episode 2 of Toronto will happen again, where we're just going to see counters and then counters to the counters. So I'm really interested. Like Arlo said, I'm really interested to see what Santa Clara brings and what actually does well. I don't think it'll be one deck over and over and over.
The Fight Club Reshizard that beat the Quagnag, the Reshizard was running weakness policy.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Well,
and also
just
to say on the one prize things, like the Miltank switch build of Reshizard, I think is by far superior to the others. And so like if a Zapdos swings in for 110 and then you switch out and heal with Welder, Miltank, and then switch back in, like there goes your 2-shot plan. Or your 3-shot plan even.
Also, I really like the Jirachi build, like as much as like I don't like the Greens build, even though like people say it's probably the best version. I really don't like it. You just rely on a supporter too much, and you can't like Welder and all that stuff. I like Jirachi Kiawe. I think I would play a heavier Kiawe count. Just run it like the old Ho-Oh, and just you don't need the switching cards, which is super cool. So yeah, just build it like Ho-Oh, in my opinion.
All right, and speaking of all the counters, we have Zoro Water variants and Quagnag being the big 2 that everyone's talking about. So we got Slowking, Dugong, and the Quagnag, obviously. Which of these counters do you think is the best, not only for the Reshiram matchup, but for other matchups in general?
So I think that Zoroark Water, I think a lot of these lists are, I guess they're like underperforming because a lot of people don't know how to build Zoroark. Like we got a lot of new cards that we could add in, Koga's Trap, Lieutenant Surge. A lot of people are like, oh, let's add Persian GX in there. Like every list is looking like some kind of mess of like Persian GX, a bunch of tech supporters, and then like a thin water line. So I think to the average player, or to most players in general, that's really gonna not hold through. Quagnag, we've actually seen it can back itself with some results, whereas just like, what was it, recently in Denver we had Roscoff and he made top 16 with Quagnag. With the results like that in a tournament that wasn't fire dominated, I think that in a fire dominated tournament we totally can see it. doing well. So with Reshizard, Baby Blacephalon, and other matchups that are pretty good, like you can add the new fighting Quagsire, even Onyx does well against Pikarom. Quagsire and Naganadel seems very strong looking into this weekend.
I'll have to disagree. I don't think Quag and Nag, or Nag and Quag, whatever, whichever one we're calling it this time, I don't think it's very good. I played the deck a lot just for fun when it first came out with Naganadel, and the main issue is that you're relying off of acrobikes and or supporters, or even if you can fit an Oranguru or a Zebstrika in there, your bench space doesn't really allow for a draw support Pokemon, so you have to rely on drawing off of a supporter and then getting a supporter off of that supporter for next turn, or you're just top decking. You can create boards that run themselves. So once you have a fair amount of energy in the discard, you can charging up with Naganadel and have energy just cycling through the board with Wishful Batons on your Quags or whatever. But a Field Blower shuts that down. A Let Loose can put you into a hand you can't play with. And then, like Alex said, it can even lose to the decks that it's trying to counter. Obviously, it's going to have a good matchup versus Reshizard, but that doesn't mean you're always going to win. I really have liked Zoroark Slowking Persian myself. The Persian can OHKO Pikarom, and the Slowking can OHKO Blacephalon and Reshizard. I play a 2/2 of Slowking and of Persian in my list, as well as the Ditto and the 4/4 Zoroark, with 4 triple energy and 3 DCE, since you're looking for one shots with the deck. And then the 3 DCE are enough to ace a Rolla Chain your Zoroark versus Zapdos usually. So I feel like if you're going into a meta that is Reshizard, Pikarom, and Zapdos beasts, Zoroark Slowking Persian can do really well against those 3 as long as you know how to efficiently play the deck versus Pikarom, because you have to kind of bait your opponent into knocking out a Lele as their first knockout, so you can pop the whatever Persian GX's attack is called. I think it's called Catwalk, where you search your deck for any 2 cards if a GX was knocked out the previous turn, and that helps you set up your Pokemon to discard on a Professor Kukui to get the Vengeance OHKO on the Pikarom. So yeah, I really like the Zoroark Slowking Persian over the Nagquag.
Yeah, in my opinion, I just always like the Zoroark variant over because, and like any other like counter variant, because Zoroark draws a lot of cards. As general, just a very consistent deck. And I feel like with all the new tools Zoroark has, the list is going to be looking very interesting. Like Luke was talking about the Persian lines and the Triple Colors energies, like all these new tools that we have to make Zoroark an even better, stronger archetype. But I don't think we'll see Zoroark come out like as strong as like it may be for Santa Clara, because there's a lot that has to go on the list to have a positive matchup against everything. And with the set having just come out, I don't think we'll see like enough people bring their own creative lists. And Nagquag is kind of like just straightforward. So I think the overall better deck is the Zoroark variant, but I think Nagquag will be played more.
Yeah, I just wanted to add in that the Zoroark, like I said, is better in a concentrated meta of like those 3 decks I mentioned, the Zapdos, Pikarom, and Reshi. And I don't think we'll see a concentrated meta for Santa Clara. So it doesn't seem like the safer pick, but if you hit those matchups, I think it's really good.
So just counters overall for the Reshizard, correct?
Yeah.
That was the question. Okay. Yeah, I feel I like Luke's Zoroark slow version lists from what I've messed around with for a little bit. I will 100% agree. Obviously, it's his list. He knows what's up and down, all the in and outs about it. I feel like a Water Toolbox deck for some reason will do well at this event. I don't know. I'm just this came up in my head just now, like a Lapras like box kind of thing, because the Lapras can still OHKO the Reshizard, and then you have Marshadow to efficiently knock out the Pikarom. So maybe something like that toolbox could work. I don't know how you can efficiently beat Mill. I think like Lapras Nag, like a Lapras Nag box would be well with like a 2/2 Quagsire or something like that, just to like keep moving your energy, something like that. But I think the best overall counter going into Clara, unless you've tested it, I think I like the concentrated meta thing, so I would have to say Quagnag. But for me personally, I love Zoroark. and I would just play the Zoroark deck just to be more consistent.
All right, and speaking of the Zoroark deck there, we have two other variants that I've seen play in the past, and who knows if they'll continue to see the success that they did, but we got Zoroark with like all the stuff that you might want, or just a straightforward build, and then we also got Zoroark Control. Do you think either of these two decks are still viable in this new meta?
I think that Zoroark is one of those decks where it's just like, it was really strong because Pikarom was very good last format. There was a lot of fighting weak Pokemon. This format, it looks like you need to kind of have that water tech if you're playing Zoroark. So Zoroark Slowking, Zoroark Dugong, even like Zoroark Gyarados, like whatever is water type is generally good right now because fire is so popular. Zoroark Control is it's in an interesting place right now, but with the newly released power plants, it might not be as strong as what we want it to be. Because Power Plant, it just shuts off trade. So I know that a lot of players have been focusing on playing the new Salazzle with Heat Factory and Oranguru. So while it might not be Zoro Control, it might just be a similar deck that just focuses like that.
Yeah, I don't think Zoro Control can handle Pikarom and Reshizard and other basic energy decks that might pop up like Nagquag and whatnot. I think I said this in my own meta discussion video, that Zoroark Control already had to tech to beat Pikarom, and like that was a huge hurdle to get over, was how do we make Zoroark Control beat Pikarom, and now we have Welder in Baby Blounds and Welder in Reshizard, and the Welder energy acceleration kind of comes out of nowhere, whereas the Pikarom, they have Coco Prism, and maybe Rayquaza GX, and then that's kind of it in standard. Zoroark is always going to see play, but I'm not sure it's better than Zoroark Slowking Persian.
In my opinion, I feel like Zoroark will definitely see some play. Not as much play as the water variants, but Zoroark has always just been one of those decks that's always been very consistent. And the deck also with Alolan Muck can also just handle the one-price decks that everyone's expecting a lot of to come out of to try and beat the big tag team decks. It has a very good matchup against those. So I feel like Zoroark is going to do pretty well. But if there's like a lot of fire, like Reshizard decks that come up, I feel like Zoroark will not do well. It just kind of really depends what people bring and what people don't bring.
I don't think Control is like that good anymore, just because like the amount of times that you can use Welder in one game is really, really rough. I haven't tested Control, so don't quote me. I don't think it's that good. Zoroark, like Arlo said, I don't think you can touch Reshizard unless you play like that Slowking stuff, which I mean the Zoroark Slowking version is just a better deck. Yeah, out of those two, I don't think you should play either. But if you're gonna play one, I think Zoroark is the one to go with.
All right, and moving on to another really popular archetype that a lot of people are hyping up is Stall because of the addition of Lieutenant Surge. So in the past, we've seen Vileplume and Regigigas, but now with the introduction of Lucario and Melmetal, do you think that will take the spotlight, or do you think Regigigas or the Vileplume variants are better?
So I think that right now, if we're looking for some kind of stall deck, I think that Vileplume variants are probably the better versions than playing a strict Regigigas line. Lucario Melmetal, I think it naturally takes a place in the deck, especially over like the Lugia GX placement that they had, because a lot of people don't realize that the GX attack also removes energies. And it's really just a big wall in general. So if anything, I think it's cool. I think a lot of people, if they are playing Vileplume, they're sleeping on the new Gloom. Because you could look in your opponent's hand and put a big Pokemon that they maybe hiding in their hand and then bring it up and force them. Seems like a good card to include in general. But yeah, new tricks, Lieutenant Surge, Power Plant, Pokegear is really good in the deck. And then of course, if you're playing Lucario Melmetal, already going off of the GX attack, playing Metal Frying Pan.
Yeah, I think Stall is ridiculous right now. If people weren't talking about it, like the deck would be 100% the play, and I think it still might be the play. Like people don't enjoy teching for Stall, and when they do, they just throw in an Oranguru and think they beat Stall, and you don't beat Stall that way. Some decks can, others will tie, and others will lose. Oranguru isn't just one and done. If the stall deck is playing Lugia GX counter gain still, which I really like, if you can find the room in your build, you can just Lost Zone the Guru, and then you're back to playing without a counter. Lucario Melmetal is insane for the Full Metal Wall GX attack if you're not using Lugia in that game. Like Zach said, you're removing energy and taking less damage in addition to your Metal Frying Pan, and you can just pop a Solgaleo Prism into the active, and it's 160 HP non-GX, taking 60 less damage every turn. Lieutenant Surge is a busted card and should definitely see play in stall decks. And I do like the certainty that Vileplume gives you against basic decks. But if Pika Roms play 1/1 Jolteon and Reshizards play Flareon, then it doesn't do its job, and it's also making the deck a bit clunkier. In my current builds, I have one on PTCGO with just 4 Hoopa 4 Reggie, 2 Lucario Melmetal, Unknown Hand, and the Solgaleo Prism. And then I also have ones where I've worked in Vileplume lines. But the non-Vileplume is definitely less clunky, and you're not hoping that your opponent has no counter in their deck for it.
I just want to add in real quick that if you are playing Ditto, I do highly recommend playing a Persian, because that card is really, really good in that matchup.
Yeah, make them pay.
Yeah.
Make him pay.
All right.
Yeah, I kind of agree with everyone that I think the Vileplume variants are going to be a little bit taking a back foot in this particular meta, because it's really kind of expected. Like, we first saw Vileplume at St. Louis Regionals, and no one had really any idea. But a couple Pika box lists played the 1/1 Jolteon, was able to stop it from like winning the entire tournament. And of course, Blacephalon Dex was able to take it down. But I feel like in this particular meta with Surge and the Lucario Melmetal, I feel like Stall is going to do very well, and hopefully people will tech for it, because that'd be a good idea.
I wish YouTube wasn't a thing, because I would definitely play it going into Santa Clara. I love Vileplume as a card. I helped build Lockier's deck for Hartford. It was the best deck that I did not play. And yeah, I just love sitting there with a Vileplume in my active, and they can't attack me. If I were to play Mill this weekend, I would say Unknown Hand is your win condition. That, or you're going to be attacking with Vileplume. If you are going to play Mill, make sure you're attacking with Plume, or you have Unknown Hand, and just take the tie if you hit a Zoroark with a Guru and Judge.
At Rudy Wade.
All right.
Yes.
So the next deck that we're going to go over is Zapdos. So there are 3 variants that kind of been here since the beginning, is the Ultra Beast, the Fighting, and the Jolteon. Ultra Beast got a lot of really new tricks from the new set, like the Kartana, the Spiritomb, and the Buzzmosa. I don't know if there's anything else that I'm missing, but yeah, take it away. Which one of these are the best?
The one thing, like, I think Spiritomb's really hot in that deck, because you could do a bunch of damage with its ability, and then you slap on a Rainbow, and you get a single prize card attacker that can do that. Buzzmosa, I think, is probably like my favorite tech in the deck. Beyond that, seems pretty solid in general, just taking 2 prize cards off something easy. But those 2 are my favorite. Kartana's been like hit or miss with me right now, and there's one thing about overly teching your deck. But I think we'll see after this weekend with Sydney, Santa Clara, and Sao Paulo regionals all going on at the same time, that we'll see which techs work out to be the best.
Yeah, I agree. The Spiritomb is really good. I posted a Zap Beasts list on my YouTube, and since then I've replaced the Kartana with Spiritomb, because the big cut, while it's really nice, it seems like it's better when in games that you're falling behind, because if you're even on prizes with your opponent, then you can use Sledgehammer or Big Cut if you're both at 4 prizes, and then one of them gets wasted, kind of, and fighting type weakness is just usually better. So I replaced the Kartana with Spiritomb because it's a huge burst of damage. With a choice band, it's 190 at max damage. That kind of comes out of nowhere. It's not on a pre-desired turn. Like, it's not like your opponent's expecting when you're at this amount of prize cards, the Spiritomb's doing this damage. It can happen whenever you want, as long as you have the damage ready to go on it. I think Zapdos Beasts is very good. I also think the Zapdos Buzzwole deck, made by CutterTap.com, it was made by Finn and somebody else on there. from last format can still transition well into this format. It has a problem versus stall, obviously, but other than that, you can do pretty well against a field of decks.
Yeah, I really like the Zapdos Beast right now. Zapdos Jirachi has been like one of my favorite decks that I've played in this format, like this year of Pokemon. I've just really enjoyed playing the deck, and I feel like the Beast version, adding with Spiritomb Kartana and the Buzzmoza as potential techs, just makes the deck still viable in the same meta when we have a lot bigger tag teams. Like Zapdos is just such a consistent deck, and it can just maybe able to do a lot of damage potentially with just one energy and like just a one price Pokemon is just so much in this meta. You can like up the shrine counts against the bigger tag teams and just play just straight Zapdos even and stuff like that. Yeah.
For me personally, I just don't like beasts. I don't know, like I won a cup with it and like I liked it like a lot. And then it started to brick a little bit and just felt like it was always consistently happening. And I don't know if it was just me shuffling bad probably, but like I don't know. I just didn't like it as much. I'll have to test it out more. So if I were going to Santa Clara, I wouldn't touch it with a 5-foot pole, but that's me. If I were to play a Zapdos variant, I'd probably play Jolteon just to stay safe against the Vileplume decks. And just yeah, I'd play Zapdos Jolteon if I were going to this event.
All right, then the next big deck is Mr. Zach's favorite, the Blowns.
Yo, Blowns, what up?
All right, so we got the baby Blown and the big Blown. Which one of these is better, or are they even viable at all? Take it away.
I think that Baby Blown sounds pretty cool. If you're running it, play it with Salazzle. If you're not running Salazzle, don't run the deck. Otherwise, you will just fall into like mid-game nothingness. I think the deck can be a really good contender, but we really need to see exactly how the players are going to be creating their decks. If we are talking about Big Blowns, I gave up on the deck after the set, and then I recently read Alex Szymanski's article. I think that he brought up a lot of valid points, especially where the deck stands in the metagame. I'm not entirely sure if I like the Salazzle GX that he included in his list. I don't think you necessarily need it to beat Vileplume, but if you're unsure about how to play that matchup, it could be very good against Vileplume. I think that even omitting something like the Muck line for this weekend, if you are playing it, and then running a Salazzle line with a Salandit, similar to how I ran my Collinsville list, could be very good. So I think only time will tell to see if Blowns can get some more championship points on the board. Obviously, I'm hoping for it, but I have personally moved on to other decks at the moment.
I've never played Blowns to a tournament, but I actually like it more now than I ever have. I wasn't really a big fan of it previously, but Welder is like insane. So I didn't like before how you had to wait for B-String kind of, and now you can just pop off with a Welder. I've tried Ditto in place of the 4 Poipole, and then a 1/1 Salazzle with the draw ability, Roast Reveal. And then a 1 Salazzle GX has been in and out of the deck as well as just a backup attacker and also versus Vileplume, like Zach said. I've also tried it without the extra line of Pokemon, just cutting the Muck space entirely to add, I believe, an extra energy and an energy spinner for the Welder turns. So the 4 Welder and 3 to 4 B-String has been very overwhelming in the games where you get Welder turn 1. It's been like good against every single deck. Baby Blowns I'm not a fan of. It kind of sounds like a meme to me.
Yeah, I feel like Blacephalon GX is not as great as Reshizard, just because there's like a lot of things that could easily just one-shot a Blacephalon, while other things you have to actually just have a direct counter for Reshiram Charizard. And I feel like Reshiram Charizard has more like backup, like you have a ways to attack again in the following turns, just because you don't have to consistently be attaching energy. You can just like Kiawe turn 1 and then Welder twice sometime during the game, and that'll be your attackers for the game. And as far as Baby Blacephalon, I think it has a lot of potential, but I feel like until Worlds we won't see it played, because very like timely Let Loose can just destroy Baby Blowns' board.
A big point to make for Blacephalon GX is that it's favored versus Reshizard, though. Since you're trading 2 prizes for 3 and you both have 1-shot potential.
Well, Luke said what I was about to say.
Oh,
So that
snap,
goes to my
sorry.
point. It's okay. I don't care. I think if I were to play any sort of Browns to any sort of events, I would probably play Big Browns just because Big Brown is better than Baby Brown. And also, I think, I don't know. Like, I've tested it once, and I literally ended the game in like 3 turns because I said, well, there are 3 turns in a row, and he literally scooped up his cards. But I don't know. Baby Browns sucks in my opinion. I have yet to lose to it. So if you can get your list solidified and beat me, then you might have me convinced. Otherwise, yeah, they said it all.
All right, and another deck coming out of the new set that has been receiving some hype online more than actually talked about is Wheezing. Do you think this card is just easily teched against with the Mew, or is more complicated than that?
I don't think you could tech against it with just a Mew. There's a lot of things that they could do. They could also just rescue stretcher Mew back and then rescue stretcher that other Mew back. So I don't necessarily think that Mew. I don't think you like. I don't know. I just think that like Wheezing is something that we shouldn't sleep on. It's just one of those things. I think it's good. Probably similar to like what we have in Expanded with Shock Lock is the best way that I've seen to compare it to, where it's just like if you don't have hard counters to it, you probably aren't going to make it too far.
Yeah, I got Wheezing right here. I have 4 different lists of Wheezing built right now, so I've been testing it a lot. It's definitely real. Spread has always been my favorite strategy, like way to play the game, and so I've been really happy with how powerful it's been lately. Um, Mew is actually terrible versus Wheezing because if they bench a Mew and you have a detention gas going on for 1 turn, that's 1 damage counter on it, and then they knock out your Wheezing with Spell Tag, and that's 4 damage counters on the Mew, then you send up a new Wheezing with detention gas, the Mew is dead, and then you just continue spreading after that. You need like Mew and Field Blower, and then you possibly need another Field Blower after that, and then that's still like that's 2 Field Blowers and a Mew, and if that's all for 1 matchup, that's kind of a lot to not even guarantee it. Since the decks should and some are playing counter energy attackers that have 1-shot potential, like Frost Rotom for Reshizard and Blounds, and it has Larvitar and or Baby Buzzwole for fighting type weak decks like Zoroark and Pikarom. Personally, I've been liking the Wheezing Jirachi build, and I've also have a Wheezing Honchkrow build with a 1/1 Zebstrika line in it that's been pretty nice, but that one seems like it takes a lot more. It has some weirder mid games because it doesn't have the Jirachis to get you just get you a supporter when you want it, and you have to rely on the Zebstrika or drawing into supporter. So the Jirachi one feels a lot more smooth, and the Zebstrika one with Honchkrow has more options, obviously because you have another attacker. The deck feels really good against anything big basic based that's not one of the quad decks, like Quad Guardian, Quad Buzzmosa, because they could just put down 1 Pokemon and heal it. So it feels good against both Blounds, against Reshizard, against Pikarom. And then you obviously have to tech for the things like Zoroark and things that evolve.
Yeah, I don't think Wheezing is really that strong yet. Like Zach said, the Mew doesn't really stop the matchup. That gives like a kind of a little positive thing, but I feel like Zoroark is still going to be strong, and just having just the detention gas doesn't work on the Zoroark decks, and also just like big tag teams, just kind of like making it hard for Wheezing decks to spread enough. I don't know. I feel like it could be good later on, but not right now.
Play a Field Blower in your list. That's the end of the topic.
All right. Next deck on the list is Pikarom. In the past, we've seen it built order pads, and other builds have been playing it with more of a Zapdos Jirachi engine. Do you think either one of these builds are viable in the current meta with all the Reshizard hype, or any other opinions?
I think you just take Gustavo's list from Berlin, you slap into electromagnetic whatever radars in there, and then you add it to Dene, and you're good to go. he solved the format, and I guess the biggest question is Wobbuffet still necessary in this format or no? And that's basically all you need to do, but otherwise the list is like concrete right now.
Yeah, there's two ways to build the deck, either the Pika box with the Zapdoses and possibly the 1/1 Jolteon GX, or you can go turbo. There's a lot of lists from Japan to like get a skeleton, 4 from that, like 4 energy switch, 3 multi switch, 2 Dedenne, 1 Marshadow, 1 Lele. And I've been testing one of those just because I'm not going to Santa Clara and League Cups are my priority right now, so I want something fast and consistent. And turn 1 full blitz every game seems really, really good. And a lot of times if you go first and set up your attackers, your opponent can't always find the Mew. And even if they are finding the Mew, you can just go like Guzma and hit it with your 1 Zapdos.
Yeah, I feel like Pikarom decks are still going to be sticking around just because they have a lot more tools. Because we have like a way to search out the Pikarom in the Zero Aura and the Dedenne GX. I think the Mew is kind of like a big factor in how the deck is going to be structured because it takes away the power of the GX attack. Like we may see like more like ways, more text GX attacks will be played during the game. Just like make a strategy around those instead of the big tag bull at the end of the game if Mew is like prevalent in their lists. Or we'll see like a more just Zapdos focused meta, and we'll see Pikarom take a backseat for now.
For all the boys that are on Plume Game, I hope everybody plays Turbo and doesn't play Jolteon GX. Otherwise, I think the deck is really. I don't think the deck is as powerful as it was, and even though I still really like it, I really like Gustavo's list as is. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't tested it. Nor do I really bother to, just because I don't like it at all. Like the previous format was like so good that I don't want to like try to change it to make it as good as it was, because no matter what, I'm going to be disappointed with what I get with the final product that I get.
All right, and the last deck in this huge meta is Malamar. Viable or not?
DDG made some video about it, so maybe it is viable. I haven't looked into it too much. I guess Ultra Necrozma can knock out tag team GXs, but it could be pretty cool. Beyond that, I've never really liked Malamar. It's kind of like inconsistent to me, so I think there's better decks to choose from in this format.
My good friend Rukan would tell you that Malamar still has potential. He likes Malamar Dugong. And like you said in my video, the Dugong is very polarizing. It's either really good in the matchup or it's completely useless. But Malamar seems like tier 2 at best. I think it's too underwhelming now. You need a lot to set it up, and then you need a lot out of the setup to get your Okos, whereas other decks are just like Welder Boom.
Yeah, I feel like Malamar is not going to be as like popular as it was at the start of the beginning of last format, like we saw. I think it was in Sao Paulo. Maybe it was, I think it was Australia, never mind. But we saw Ultra Necrozma and Malamar be like the most popular pick, and then we saw Zapdos just completely take over the tournament. I don't think that will happen again, but I think there will be a lot of Ultra Necrozma decks being out there. Because it's still going to be very strong. It has a lot of ways you can shift between the game of either attacking with Guillotine against the one-price matchups or just going straight Ultra Necrozma against the tag team decks.
Can I just say pass? I really don't like it. It sucks.
All right, and yep, on to the last couple questions for the video is, what are the top 3 decks for the event?
So I'm going to go with Reshazard, Weezing, and let's go Gardevoir Sylveon.
I think the top 3 are Stall, probably with Vileplume, but Reggie Hoopa, Lucario Melmetal is like the basis of the deck, and then if you choose to play the Vileplume line, you play it. Zapdos, Ultra Beasts, and my wild card I think is Gramble.
I think if I were going, I would be either playing Zapdos, Jolteon, Plume, like a Plume Stall type decks, or then Reshizard itself. I think those are the top 3 strongest decks right now.
In a particular order, I would put Plume as number 1. That deck is so freaking good. Number 2, probably Reshizard, because I just want to get points because I need my invite and I want to play the best deck. 3, probably some trash deck that I go O2 drop it with, so something like Zoroark.
I see you.
All right.
Yeah,
And the
on the
last
game.
question is, what is the best rogue deck?
I'm gonna pass on this. I have no clue on that. It's basically whatever anyone wants to play. Let's say Whimsicott just to have an answer.
Yes.
Is Wheezing Rogue?
No.
All right. Either I'm looking through my PTCGO decks. Either Shedinja, Shedinja
block.
Stall,
Yeah.
or Baby Stakataka.
I think the best rogue deck is probably Guardy Sylveon. I feel like that deck is actually be very strong in a one prize meta.
I'm trying to look at Zach's background to see if I can pick out a card.
Yo, go with Pheromosa GX.
Alright, so we're on Pheromosa weakness policy just to, you know, I don't know, good rogue deck. I mean, I wouldn't say Stall, but Stall's popular. Guardy Sylveon, I guess, just because the card's not as good as it is.
All right.
Or
That should do it for this one. If you guys want to give any shout outs or anything on the way out, feel free to do so.
Okay, so I have a list. So I'm gonna go shout out to Ultra Pro. So Eclipses are my favorite sleeves to use at any tournaments. TC Evolutions. Keep track of your abilities with some premium ability markers. It might just save you from a double prize card penalties. Dead Draw Gaming. If you go to deaddrawgaming.com, you can use code ZACH, Z-A-C-H, to save 10% off your order. 60 Cards, the article site with the most accomplished writers. You can use code PENDY3, PENDY3, like the number, to save on your subscription today. You can check me out on my Twitch at LESAGE Pokemon, no underscore. Twitter at LESAGE Pokemon, and Facebook as Zach Lesage, and you can DM me for coaching. I gotta run because I actually have coaching to do in 2 minutes, so it's been a blast. Have a good night, everyone. Good luck at Santa Clara.
Yeah, my YouTube channel is Celio's Network. My Twitch is Celio's Network _ between Celio's and Network. Same for my Twitch. No, same for my Twitter. I just said Twitch. You can check out my sponsors or my affiliated website, flipsidegaming.com. They have free articles. I write for them weekly. They have Dragon Shield sleeves for $7.99 a 100 count. Single sealed product, board games, comics, whatever you want. Use code Celio, all caps, for 10% off there. And they have free shipping on all singles and orders 100 or more. And yeah, thanks Rudy for having me on the channel. It was fun.
Yep.
Yeah, I just want to shout out to all the people I test list and my sponsor, The Next Level Games. You can go to tnlg.net and pick out any card that you were looking for in your card games. And yeah.
All right.
Shout out to well, technically he's above me. No, shout out to everyone on this video because I test with all of you and it's cool. Shout out to Rudy for having me on. It's gas consistency of me being on every meta discussion.
Literally.
So
shout out Joshua Sutherland.
Shout out to Joshua Sutherland. Shout out to I don't even know what the chat's called anymore. So shout out to the homies and shout out to the DDG No Leaks chat.
All right. Yep. That'll do it for this one. See you in the next one.
Rudy, cut that out.